talk a little bit more about the manufacturing plant. Okay, so that's one side. There's other things that happen. So the prep kitchen is directly behind the frontline kitchen, but then behind the prep kitchen is a walk-in cooler, which to the right or left of that is the dry storage and the receiving door for all the deliveries.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mastering Restaurant Revenue, the podcast where restaurant dreams meet real-world strategy. We're your hosts, Bruce Russo and Diane Armitage. Today is a fun one. We are randomly answering the many questions that have begun to pour into our YouTube channel comments and our MasteringRestaurantRevenue.com community. If you're not yet a part of MasteringRestaurantRevenue.com, it's free, it's community, we go deeper on episodes, we've got all kinds of things going on there. So I'm going to just blast you with questions, Bruce. You don't know what's coming. And
Lovely.
a couple of them are for me. The rest are all for you. You ready?
Okay, shoot.
Okay.
Fire away.
This one's from Deidre in Naperville. She says, you mentioned building out a restaurant patio more strategically as a revenue pod. We currently have maybe a mid-sized patio, about 80 seats behind our restaurant. A couple of questions. You talked about installing a warming kitchen. Do we have to get additional permitting for that from the city?
Well, I can tell you 80 seats on a patio is substantial. So there is warming equipment that can be purchased that you do not need an exhaust hood for. As long as you don't have an open flame or a gas-fired fixture, I don't think the code of Naperville is going to require a hood. But it's a good question to ask the building department, because Naperville they're a pretty substantial restaurant community, and we've built a number of restaurants there. So it wouldn't hurt to have a call to the city, but off the top of my head, I'm going to say no. But there will be some clearance areas that you're going to have to maintain away from the tables.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. So the question that arrives in my mind is, if you call the city and ask them a question like that, doesn't it tip them off?
No, you can just randomly ask them. You don't have to tell them that you're in business.
Okay.
You don't have to tell them you're in business. You can just,
yeah, you can tell them
we make those calls for the clients, and hey, we're talking to a client, and the question come up, there's 80 seats on the patio and they're thinking of putting a warming kitchen up there. What's the requirement?
Yeah. That is a great point. If you folks don't know, we are hired out as consultants. Even if it's a few questions or direction here and there, and Bruce is always available for that kind of consulting. So,
yes.
Okay. So the second question of hers was, you mentioned a portable bar. How large would you go on this? And is it strictly a service bar, or is it a bar where we would seat people on the patio?
There are pre-made portable bars. They're basically a section of the interior bar on 4 casters. Now, I've seen numerous ones out there, and I'm going to give Websterant.com. Look up Websterant.com. Type in portable bars, and they have 5 to 6 foot units that are all self-contained. They have a cabinet for liquor. They have a jockey. It's basically a jockey box on wheels.
Oh, that's perfect.
And the customer side is 42 inches high. Bartender side is 36 inches high. So the offset that's there, it's bar top height. So you can have clients stand there and be served by that bartender. Typically, that would be the side for the staff. It would be a service bar outside, and the staff would go up there and get their drinks and walk throughout the patio. But I can tell you they're a great accessory to have when you have a patio over 50 or 60 seats, because the cocktails are right there. And generally those portable bars can maintain, and they could make probably 75% of the common requested cocktails.
Yeah, that's great.
And they even come.
Do the bars come in different sizes?
Yes.
Lengthwise?
Yes. I think they start at 3 foot, go up to 6 foot. And the bigger ones have a small built-in container for the dump sink.
Oh, neat. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? There's a tank. Yeah, there's a tank under. Yes, there's a tank underneath the countertop that the hand sink pours into, and then at the end of the evening, you just roll it to a floor sink inside, and the drain cap comes off and goes right into the drain.
Okay, perfect.
They're very well engineered. I can tell you.
Huh, that's great. Okay, so for anybody who has other questions or is interested in our patio, we did the overlooked restaurant area in your restaurant, and that is episode 9. So if you want to learn more about all of the patio tips we gave, that would be episode 9. Okay.
Perfect. Yes.
Now, we have Brian in Miami, and he said, I get from your episode that hosts should not be answering takeout phone calls while they're on shift at the front of the restaurant. But in downtime, when they're just hanging out in the afternoon between rushes, what do we do with them?
Let them answer the phone. Okay.
That's what I would say.
Well, I'm okay. So let's back up. I'm assuming it's a very well-established restaurant, so they know their peaks and valleys. Okay. I've announced my opinion on Hostess. They need to be one of the most important people in your operation. They need to operate their hostess station like they're the owner of the restaurant. And they need to control the clients like they're the owner of the restaurant. And when you see that in action, when it's a professional hostess, I can assure you that restaurant's revenue is easily 30 to 40% more than its counterpart.
That is amazing. Yeah.
That just has, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this, but, the typical norm is a high school girl standing at the counter.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody comes in, they grab 2 menus or 4 menus and take them to a seat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the definition of a hostess. But my definition of a hostess is like you just got off the cruise ship and the welcoming committee is there. And that hostess is the welcoming committee for you walking in the door. And
at
it
your
should
5-star resort.
Absolutely. And it should be a 5-star process from the day they walk in, from the time they walk in to the time they leave.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, what I think of it is more of a maitre d', because whenever I think of a maitre d' in a restaurant, it is a person who is having sophisticated conversation with the guests. There's just a lot of, they have an air of ownership about them and a presence about them. Correct. And so when we were talking in episode 7, the real MVP of your restaurant, when we were talking about the importance of having a person like that, we were also saying that you don't want to have them answering takeout calls at the host stand because you've got guests coming in and then they're like, talking away on the phone. They have their eyes down. They're not even making eye contact with you. You don't want that happening. And so, if you do have downtime between, your lunch rush and maybe when the happy hour begins, okay, maybe. But, we still are saying put the takeout phone in the office in the back and put someone in charge of answering that takeout phone as if it is a separate revenue pod, because it is a
This.
separate business.
And I can tell you, over the past 5 years, you'd be amazed at how many phones have not been installed at the host stand, and it's just iPad.
Yeah.
For the connection for Open Table or whatever they're using.
Correct.
And there are no phone calls answered at the host stand.
Right.
But, that's the $90 and $100 ticket average.
Mm-hmm. True.
So, it makes a difference.
Agreed. Okay. Do you think we answered that pretty well?
I think so. If not, have them give us a call back.
I mean, I do think it's important too I used to be a hostess in high school, and whenever I had downtime, I was always picking up the restaurant, cleaning up things, or I was talking with the cooks or the chefs about what the specials were for the day, all that kind of thing, because you can be amazed at how many times hosts and hostesses field those questions, or they can make that conversation happen when they seat the people at the table. And so having an understanding, I go into a restaurant repeatedly, and I say, "What's your soup today?" "I don't know, got to go check." "I don't know." They wander off, wander back.
Okay, so
And
somebody wasn't listening
sake.
somebody wasn't paying attention at pre-shift.
Right. Or they don't have a pre-shift, which is a huge mistake.
Or they don't.
People rush in, they take off their backpack, they start working, right? And there is no pre-shift, which is a huge mistake in any restaurant, no matter what the size. Okay, so moving on to the next question. Okay, so again, that is episode 7 of the host and the maitre d' feeling and all that kind of thing. The real MVP of your restaurant was what that was called.
Yes.
You can find all of these at our YouTube station, on your favorite audio podcast platform. You can listen to it in an audio podcast on our YouTube station, Mastering Restaurant Revenue. So go there, subscribe. We love it that when you like and subscribe, tell your friends about it, all that kind of thing. Okay, so now, James in Henderson, which is, a suburb of Las Vegas, he said, "Your manufacturing plant idea for restaurants is genius. But when you're designing the layout for a restaurant kitchen, where in the heck do you put the dish pit if you're thinking manufacturing plant?"
Okay, so my typical, there's 5 things on the list. And number 3 is the inbound side of the kitchen. There's a path on the inbound side of the kitchen that takes you to the dish pit. So if you're using servers to bus the tables, they would come in that inbound doorway, go to the dish pit, turn around, and I typically make that hall 5 foot or larger so you can have people passing one another. Mm-hmm. They make a turn, and within 10 to 12 feet, there's a POS right there.
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 feet next to those 2 POS stations is the expo line.
Okay.
So I'm sending them on their way to drop the dish, dirty dish. They came in the inbound door. They're going to turn around, come back. Either they're going to put their order in the POS, or they're going to pick up an order, or directly behind them is the wait station to where they can get drinks, sodas, the bread of the day, whatever it is at that host station. I've put them on a path. This is their work path. Everything is to the right or left of them as they walk through that aisle. They've come in the inbound side. They've made a left-hand turn, and now the expo's on the right and the wait station's on the left. They're going to walk down. If there's bottle service, it's refrigerated at the end of that walkway. They turn left. You walk around a screen wall so you can't see what's in the kitchen, and then they go serve the food.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. When you say they walk around the screen wall, you're talking about when they exit the kitchen so that the guests can't see into the kitchen.
Correct. I never design a kitchen that you can see in the kitchen.
Right. I hate that. I don't like it at all. I don't care what part I'm seeing. I don't want to see it.
I can tell you, I've been in many restaurants where you could sit in the dining room, look right into the dish pit.
Yeah, that's the worst part. to see.
You know, and that's all I need to see.
Yeah.
Because somebody needs to take, whoever designed that restaurant, somebody needs to take their pencil away.
Give me that pencil.
I mean,
I know. I mean, it's clearly somebody who either doesn't spend a lot of time in restaurants or doesn't design restaurants and have an understanding of
correct.
this kind of thing. So same reason why you have doors on your restrooms and they're perfectly down a hall.
Yes. And so let's talk a little bit more about the manufacturing plant. Okay. So that's one side. There's other things that happen. So the prep kitchen is directly behind the frontline kitchen, but then behind the prep kitchen is a walk-in cooler, which to the right or left of that is the dry storage and the receiving door for all the deliveries.
Correct. So you're walking us backwards to the receiving door. Yeah.
Correct. You come through the receiving door. Everything's delivered. I typically put a 6-foot square space at the back door or larger for check-in. And then I like to put a fold down desk for the chef that just folds up to the wall, sticks out about 3 inches.
Oh, smart.
That's where he does all his paperwork. That's where he checks in all his product.
And then right there, you're moving into storage. Boom,
correct.
Boom.
It either goes to the walk-in cooler, the freezer, or dry storage.
That's right. Awesome. In fact, we are working on a book right now, folks. And the book, we have an introductory section of the book. It's 5 chapters, and it's all sort of the foundational stuff. And the manufacturing plant is the second chapter of this book, because it is absolutely vital that people understand how Bruce Russo created the concept of building out a kitchen according to a manufacturing plant. So we're looking forward to getting that book out to all of you masses as soon as possible. So awesome. Ready for the next question?
Yes.
You're doing very well. You're doing very well, Bruce. Okay. Joe in Billings, Montana. So this is a 2-part question first for Bruce. He says,
hey, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Billings, Montana. We like Billings. At what percentage does your takeout need to be revenue-wise before you really start focusing on it as a separate revenue pod? I have an idea in my mind, Diane's mind. What is it for you?
30 to 40%.
That's exactly what I think. You hit 30%, it's time to make that a whole separate business.
Correct.
Because you've already got all the pieces in place.
Correct.
And
that's a whole different kitchen design too. Well, not so much the kitchen, but the expo side.
Exactly.
That's where the pot of revenue starts, on the expo side of the kitchen. So that section of the expo has to be designed to deliver those to-go orders without disrupting the diners in the restaurant.
And this is a really important thing that you said here, Bruce, because I think if any restaurant is going into a space and they want to make takeout 30% of their revenue or more, they design that into the initial part of the kitchen. Of course.
It has to be. Yes.
It has to be. And the other part that you've mentioned as far as the manufacturing plant goes, which is so important if you think about a manufacturing plant, all of the trucks are pulling up to a different door on that side of the manufacturing plant to pick up the finished product. And that's where you want to have, like you said, your Ubers, your even your regular people who are coming in to pick up their takeout. They do not come in the front of the restaurant. Nobody who is picking up product to ship to some other country is walking in your front door and saying, I've got the semi out front. Let's cart everything from the kitchen out to the semi. Doesn't happen.
Work that way. No.
Yeah.
No. We learned a lot during COVID and it took us probably 4 or 5 tries to perfect it. But once we got it perfected, I can tell you, it hit the restaurant industry in the Dallas-Fort Worth market like a blazing fire.
Right.
Because the way it was designed, I mean, some of the things I've seen, what they were trying to do, bless their hearts, what they were trying to do, but, it just didn't make any sense. I mean, they would have people standing in line at the front door, and the guests trying to go to dinner would have to stand in. I mean, they didn't know who the pickup people were. They didn't know who the diners were. It was a total mess. And, there are some buildings where we had to cut through the masonry, add a door, and rearrange some things in the kitchen. But I can tell you that once we got it perfected, it made all the sense in the world. None of the Uber drivers, none of the pickup delivery drivers went through the restaurant after we were done with that. Nor if you were a client that was picking up the order yourself, they went through the same door. And then I labeled parking spaces outside that door for to-go pickup only. There's a burger concept that we've probably did, I don't know, 8 or 10 stores so far. And, during COVID, 70 to 80% of their business was pickup.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, plus to go window. They had no diners coming in. And we had just we were in the process of renovating one of their stores. And that's where we made the big changes. And, we put metro shelving. I created a room and put a door to it and put the parking spaces there. If the orders were alphabetically on the shelves for the Uber drivers and all the other pickup drivers, and if it was somebody picking up, they just went to the same rack and looked for their name. The order was already paid for. They go in. I mean, it literally took 30 seconds for them to pick up their order.
Well, and that's the other thing I was going to say is that when you are designing a restaurant for that much takeout, you don't want all the bags in the boxes, piling up on tables anywhere in the front of the restaurant. Nowhere in the front of house. No. You want them on, like you said, the shelving near the area where they're coming in to pick up the orders, and they don't even have to bother anybody. They just go in, click it, pick it up, go.
Well, and, whole goal, let me just tell you the whole goal, that transaction should be a non-physical transaction. Period. And I can tell you, during COVID and, to go orders, I mean, we seen restaurateurs have all the bags sitting on a table, and they got, the red velvet ropes with the pylons and all that. And that was their expo section. And the diners that were going out would sit right next to all that. It was a complete disaster.
Right. Agreed. I just did an interview with a restaurant here in town. I do that radio show every Monday, Best of Laguna Beach. And I just interviewed them, and they have a huge takeout program. And she said it was big. They were at about 22% before COVID. And she said, and then it became the 800-pound gorilla. And she said, once they got it dialed in, it became the giant revenue source for their restaurant.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's how you want to play the game. Now, the second part of this question, he was asking me, he said, in restaurant marketing, do you advise we offer takeout as a separate marketing effort? Well, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because I think when you begin to really look at revenue pods in your restaurant, the takeout can actually become something that you spin off to a takeout type concept. And Bruce, I know you're very familiar with it. We can't talk about what it is, but we do know of a large chain that then decided to spin off their takeout, so to speak, with the most popular takeout orders. And they created a whole new restaurant concept.
Whole concept, yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so the more you gear thinking of the end in mind, now you may not want to get into that kind of a world, though you could sell that kind of a world to somebody else.
Sure.
But if you think with the end in mind from the beginning, you definitely want your marketing effort to be a separate chunk of your marketing strictly for takeout. Okay. For that audience, for that target audience, for all of the keywords around it, everything.
So when you say takeout marketing, here's the number one key to the takeout marketing. In your marketing for takeout, you have to train that client that's coming to pick up how you want them to do business with you.
Absolutely.
You have to explain the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps and educate them how you do take out business. Once they know, it's a piece of work. Trust me.
And you sell it to the client like you have been thinking of them in mind, and this is the easiest way for them to pick up takeout and order and pick up at your place.
I couldn't have said it better.
And then when you say it like that and you get them involved in it, I mean, for heaven's sake, when I order takeout, I don't want to have to drive to a restaurant, walk into the front of the restaurant and have makeup and hair and everything done. I want to go crawl in, pick up my bag, and crawl out again.
Baseball cap. Sunglasses.
Exactly. I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want anyone to recognize me.
No, trust me. I know it well.
Yeah. And so when you really think about all of the ways that you can help your client achieve the takeout expedited express process, they will love you for it and they will talk about it. They love it.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so for anybody who wanted to know about the takeout, that was episode 11, Revolutionizing Takeout. And, we are already at 25 minutes. I think that we need to stop this episode and maybe do a part 2 on questions for more questions coming in.
I think so. It sounds like you got a ton there.
We do have quite a few. So how about we call it a day on these particular questions? Of course, you can go listen to all of our podcast episodes at Mastering Restaurant Revenue at YouTube. Please subscribe. Please share the information and go to masteringrestaurantrevenue.com, our website community where you can enter more questions and interact in community and all of that. And we will see you in part 2 episode coming up next. You guys make it a great day.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining Bruce and Diane on this journey of mastering restaurant revenue. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback helps them deliver even more of what you want to hear. Until next time, keep refining your approach, stay passionate about your craft, and here's to your restaurant's continued success.